Hey, fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I've just done like a 3-hour podcast with my buddy Dennis Timar, who's a strong tennis enthusiast, a true tennis nerd. And we discussed the US Open draw, both the men's side, which ran on for quite an extra while. We got into some wormholes there. And also the women's draw in a bit shorter format. So please check that one out if you want a more in-depth analysis. Is this US Open the most open Grand Slam tournament in a long time? Possibly. Some would argue that. We don't have Novak in the draw. That's always a shame when you don't have the best players in the world. But we have to make do with what we have. How strong of a favorite is Rafa? Is he even a favorite? Let me know in the comments below. To give my opinions and to kind of summarize a bit what we talked about, I believe that Medvedev loves the hard courts in the US Open. He plays well there. He won his first Grand Slam there. So far his only Grand Slam, but this can possibly be the second. I think he will want to show his best tennis and he gets spurred on by the US crowd. So I predict that Daniil Medvedev will be one of the players, if we take it quarter by quarter, that goes to the quarterfinals. And my prediction there is that he will play Felix Auger-Aliassime. Aliassime is one of those players that sometimes is hard to be 100% confident in. He has huge potential, we all know that. But as we saw in the match versus Ruud in Canada, his home, he struggled a lot. He was shanking balls. He sometimes had too much of a racket head speed, so he misses some shots that weaker players could make. So sometimes he just seems to be not quite there. And that makes it a hard prediction. But obviously, if he plays his best, his highest level is very, very high. My first quarter, which is a tough one to predict, the men's tournament, as I said, is perhaps the most open one in a long time, with guys like Kyrgios, Bautista Agut, Carreño Busta playing amazingly well. So I think Carreño Busta is an outsider here as well, considering he won a Masters tournament and so on. But my predictions together with Dennis was Medvedev and Aliassime in the first quarter. They will go through from this part of the draw. Quarter two, we have guys like Tsitsipas, had a good tournament, then lost to Coric in the final. Was a bit surprising, but everything around Coric was surprising in that tournament. In this part of the draw, there are a few noteworthy matches, partly because you have Murray versus Cerundolo. That's a good match. I believe it will be tough for Andy to win that one. 5 sets against these physically very, very strong and powerful players. I think he can struggle a bit in these situations. But we have some strong Americans. Tommy Paul having a fantastic season. Taylor Fritz being my pick to reach the quarter from this part of the draw. He is playing his best year so far. And I think he has the mental game and pretty much a complete game overall, paired with his great serve and good power on the forehand. So I think he can go through. He is even a threat to win the title here in the US Open, I think. But we also have Matteo Berrettini, who's always dangerous, especially when things click for him. A bit hard to say anything about his form. I haven't seen anything amazing from him. Not sure if you agree. So a bit of a question mark, but I still predict that Fritz and Berrettini will go through and go to the quarterfinals. We have the return of Kyle Edmund, who's been injured for a long time. Will be fun to see Kyle back. Let's see what he can do. But he plays Casper Ruud, another very, very strong contender from this quarter in the first round. And I think Ruud will demolish him. One player to watch for sure is Maxime Cressy, this exciting serve and volley guy who can beat anyone on a good day. He should be a bit of a danger in this part of the draw. But I still predict Berrettini and Fritz to go through, although obviously Ruud is one of those players that could easily do it as well. Another exciting player to watch, I would say, is Tim van Rijthoven, who beat Medvedev in Hertogenbosch to win his first ATP title a few months ago. But maybe it's a bit too soon for him. I think he's 19 years old to do anything in a Grand Slam. But fun player to watch, beautiful one-handed backhand, big serve, good game. So check out van Rijthoven in this part of the draw. Quarter three, we have Hubert Hurkacz, recent finalist, playing pretty well, definitely very good on hard courts, should be a threat for anyone pretty much. Adrian Mannarino just won a tournament, but still don't see him doing anything special in the US Open. We talked about David Goffin in our podcast. How is he form-wise? He was gone from the game due to injuries for a while, seems to be coming back, could do some things here. Lorenzo Musetti, always fun to watch, flamboyant player, big strokes. kind of like Shapovalov, but seems to have a hard time stringing it together. He did win Hamburg ATP 500, which was very impressive, but on a hard court, I don't think he's quite found his game yet. So we will see what he can do, but I don't predict anything huge from him either. But in this part of the draw, we have Jannik Sinner, and Sinner is one of those guys that I think have brought an extra level to his game in 2022, and I definitely believe he will reach the quarterfinals here. So Sinner is my pick from this quarter, and it would be strange not to mention Carlos Alcaraz in this part of the draw. So quarterfinalists, Alcaraz versus Sinner, and this is becoming kind of a exciting matchup, a rivalry. These two young guys, very strong player, both ATP Next Gen Finals winners, and they have pretty much all the strokes in the book, and it seems that they are keenly progressing. And what I like with these two players is that they are very calm, they're very focused, not so much extravagance, but they don't get into that negative spiral that some players do. So definitely interesting matchup, the quarterfinal between Sinner and Alcaraz. Fourth quarter, we see Rafael Nadal, one of the GOATs, or the GOAT, depending on your perception. 22 Grand Slam titles. He doesn't have Novak in the field. Will this spur him on to number 23? It's possible, but we haven't seen much of him in the last couple of months due to injury. His body's been a bit broken and tired. But maybe he can come in here and win his 23rd Grand Slam. Keen to hear your thoughts there. You can't really bet against Rafa in Grand Slams. It seems almost impossible to do that. So I will pick him as the quarterfinalist of the fourth quarter. Then we have a bunch of interesting players that could face him. It could be Shapovalov, Holger Rune. Shapovalov is a bit difficult to say where he is. He's changing rackets now in recent months, not seemingly finding his feet. Holger Rune, not quite as good on hard courts as he is on clay, it seems like, but he's gonna be dangerous. We have Cameron Norrie. Might not look that he has all these weapons and whatever, but he's winning match after match after match. So he's definitely a threat. I thought Norrie and Nadal will go through this quarter. In discussion with Dennis, we ended up picking kind of an outsider, John Isner. If he has a good serving tournament, he can definitely go quite far and reach the quarterfinals. We ended up picking him as the quarterfinalist. So what do you think? Isner, Nadal, who will make it through? So those are the quarterfinalists. And if I would make any predictions, me and Dennis would discuss this. We had Medvedev and Aliassim in the first quarterfinal. I would pick Medvedev. I think Medvedev is too strong here, tactically proficient. He knows how to break players down. I think he will locate some weaknesses in Aliassim's game and win and reach the semifinal. And then we had Berrettini and Fritz, quarterfinal 2. I have big belief in Fritz, especially playing at home. Loving these hard courts. I think he can beat Berrettini. Berrettini is for me more of a question mark even to go this far. So I would say Fritz and Fritz Medvedev in the first semifinal. The third quarter, Sinner Alcaraz, that's the rivalry matchup. Great match to watch. Big power of both wings. Alcaraz lost last time, so I think he's up for revenge and he can really do it this time. So I would put Alcaraz beating Sinner, reaching the semifinals of the US Open 2022. Between Nadal and Isner or Nadal and Norrie, depending on which one you would pick, I still predict Nadal to go through to the semifinal to play Alcaraz, which would be an interesting matchup. So the two semifinals, we have Medvedev playing Fritz. Very difficult to predict. Still, you have to kind of think that Medvedev will figure Fritz out, but it might be one of those 5-setters. But Medvedev has a knack of finding the solution to the problem the opponent poses. So I think Medvedev in the final. Carlitos versus Nadal. Difficult. Dennis was more in favor of Nadal winning this matchup. I believe Alcaraz, maybe its time is here and that he can beat Rafa in the semifinal. It would be an amazing achievement. A bit of a, passing of the baton or whatever you want to call it. So that could definitely happen. So Alcaraz, Medvedev in the final. My prediction is that we have another Medvedev title, but I would love personally to see a new winner, whether it's Alcaraz, Sinner, or any other exciting new players. It would be fun to see a new Grand Slam winner in the US Open. It's definitely possible, but it's also likely that Medvedev or Nadal wins. Who would you pick for the men's title? In the end, I went for Medvedev, but my heart would probably go with Alcaraz. We talked about an open US Open. For the men's, women's is even worse. It's very difficult to predict. Świątek, she's been spectacular first part of the year, not been as confident in the second part, doesn't like the balls here. Still, she's number one in the world. Have to pick her to reach the quarterfinals. And despite this part of the draw being quite tough, quarter one, then he started talking about Ostapenko. I think Ostapenko is one of those players. Obviously, if she has the week of her life, she wins a Grand Slam. We've seen that before. But it's hard to see her do that now, in my opinion. I believe Kvitova. I did believe Kvitova also in the Wimbledon, and I was not really good with that prediction, but we'll see. So Kvitova, Świątek in the first quarterfinal on the women's side. Quarter two is very strong, very tough to predict. Naomi Osaka, can she get through Danielle Collins? That's a very tough first round for both of these players. But Osaka might come a bit from nowhere. She has no pressure. She seems to be mentally in a good spot. But if she can get through this first round, I think she can get in motion and be a threat to the title. So she has to win this one, obviously. And this is a very tough first round test. So in the end, I picked Osaka to reach the quarterfinals in this quarter. And then it was tough to choose the other player. Paula Badosa started well this year, not as convincing in the last couple of months. We have Bencic, we have Sabalenka, there's some strong threats there. I still would pick Badosa, although I could easily pick Bencic, for example. But Badosa, Osaka in quarterfinal 2. Quarter 3, we have my prediction. I talked about that in the previous podcast I did. Simona Halep, she seems to be in a good state. I don't know if there's a Mouratoglou effect or whatever you like this guy or not, but she seems to be playing really well, and she was my prediction to win the tournament in my previous podcast, and I'm going to stay by that. And then we have Caroline Garcia, won the Masters, strong player, depends a little bit on her form, but it seems like she's doing really well. Obviously, with players like Haddad Maia, Coco Gauff, it's not an easy part of the draw to predict. They're probably the toughest one. Haddad Maia in great form, Coco Gauff very dangerous, as you know. So in the end, we picked Halep versus Garcia in this quarterfinal, but this one was perhaps the toughest one. Quarter 4 is the weakest quarter, if you'd look at the players, I think. Still some exciting matchups, some exciting players, as always in Grand Slams. Daria Kasatkina seems to have really gotten in motion, playing very well, looks confident on the court. That's why we predicted her to be the quarterfinalist from this side of the draw. Obviously, for the British players and pundits, it's nice if Raducanu goes through, but it seems a bit too much too soon. In this sense, she's playing better now, but still it's winning US Open 2 years in a row seems a tall task, and I think we will get Kasatkina from this part of the draw. It's a little bit of an outside prediction, but it's fun to go with predictions that are not the most logical. Then we have Leylah Fernandez as our second pick, and Leylah played really well last year. Seems to like the conditions. It's a bit of an outsider. Could easily be Jabeur. So the quarterfinals are as follows. Świątek Kvitova, where we picked Świątek to win. I think if she gets to the quarters, she will be tough to defeat. And the same thing happens in quarter 2 with Osaka Badosa. If Osaka gets to the quarterfinals, she becomes kind of an easy pick to win the title. She already has won 2 US Opens, so she knows how to get this done. So Osaka beats Badosa to play Świątek in the semifinals. Quarter 3, Simona Halep, Caroline Garcia. Halep looks strong. I believe in her to win the title. She will beat Garcia in quarter 3, get to the semifinal. And then Kasatkina Fernandez, I will pick Kasatkina. Leaves us with 2 exciting semifinals. Świątek Osaka, what a great match. Current world number 1 versus former world number 1. I believe Osaka can take this one on at home. Let's go with Osaka there. And then we have Halep Kasatkina. I predict Halep for her experience. And yeah, she's been there before. She's won slams. She can do it. And in the final of the Women's US Open 2022, I believe Halep will beat Osaka based on her experience, confidence, and that she has feel-good vibes right now. She seems to be doing the right things. So that's my prediction. That was our joint prediction, me and Dennis. So the US Open starting tomorrow, Monday. Will be very exciting to follow. Will you watch the matches? What do you think of these predictions? Before we move on, I would like to highlight a few exciting first-round matches you should keep your eyes on. It's usually nice to have some popcorn matches, whatever you want to call them. We have Thiem versus Busta in round 1. Dominic Thiem is coming back. It's been taking time, but he's coming back. Can he beat Carreño Busta? No, not in this form, I think. Dominic is not finding quite the power he had before the injury, but he's getting there. So hopefully, I believe in Domi. I think he will get there for 2023. But for this US Open, and with the amazing form he's in, Carreño Busta will win that match. Then Nick versus Thanasi, and these are the first names, so it's actually Kyrgios versus Kokkinakis. That's a great matchup in a way, but they're also best friends, doubles players. It's going to be a tough one, but it seems like Nick is just better in pretty much all the areas, and he's playing really serious this year, playing really well. So I think he will win that pretty easily. Could be an entertaining match to watch. Cerundolo, Murray, could be a 5-setter. Murray will fight, but it could also be one of those matches where Cerundolo, who's making strides on the tour, just blasts Andy off the court with more firepower. So we will see how that goes. Could be a great match, could be a bit of a boring match. Goffin Musetti. Can Goffin get Musetti out of his comfort zone? Yes, I believe so. I think Goffin has a few tricks up his sleeves, and a guy like Musetti, who's very flamboyant but also a little bit error prone, might get a bit off balance playing a guy like Goffin with all his clean ball striking, smart defensive play. I think it could be tough for Musetti, but it's a good match to watch. And then we have Diego Schwartzman versus Sock. So that's an upset alert. I think Jack Sock now has worked slowly his way back into the men's game and is now a threat to the top players in the world if they face him. And I think Schwartzman is usually not the player who starts very confidently. He needs a few matches to build up. And first round, he is one of those guys that could be liable to losing. So I believe Sock is an upset win. On the women's side, there are some exciting matches to watch as well. Raducanu versus Alice Cornet. Very good match. Cornet obviously playing a lot more defensively. Raducanu blasts the ball. Good contrast of styles. I believe Raducanu, she's been hitting the ball well. She looks focused, so I think she will take that one, but it's a tough opponent. Osaka, Danielle Collins, we mentioned that. Danielle Collins can really play amazing tennis when she's on her game, but so can Osaka. And Osaka is coming a bit from nowhere, no extra pressure on her shoulders, especially with this matchup. So I think she will win that in the end, but it's a tough first round. We have Tatiana Maria versus Sakkari. That's going to be a long one. Maria lacks a bit of firepower. Sakkari has physical strength. She's really strong, so she can keep playing for 3 sets. But she has a tendency sometimes to mentally choke a bit. So we will see what happens. I believe Sakkari in the end, but it could be a tough match and a 3-setter. Serena versus Kovinic. Serena is playing what we all assume is her last Grand Slam, perhaps her last tournament. I think Serena might get through this one, but then it will be tough in future rounds. It's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to play a Grand Slam, and she's not as fast as she was back in the day. But she can get through this one, Serena. But then she'll also play doubles with her sister, which is a great story. So hopefully they can even win a title maybe in the doubles tournament. Would be a nice farewell to Serena Williams if she wins the Grand Slam doubles with her sister. That's all for this one. Please check out my affiliates. The links are in the description. If you purchase anything through those links, I get a small commission, helps the channel, as well as if you join my Patreon, where you get extra content for only a few bucks. All this stuff helps Tennis Nerd stay alive. Have a nice day now, and don't forget to play some tennis.